Hello everyone, hope you had a good week. Let's get started with today's video. So lately what I've observed is that my rating has been fluctuating a lot from I've reached 1950 odd and then came down to 1880, then moved back to 1900. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride. And what I thought is that probably there is some long-term improvements that I need to incorporate in my game, right? So I started analyzing some of my last few losses and trying to understand what's the root cause behind those losses, right? And what do I actually need to keep trying to improve to make the movement from this 1900 range, 2000 range a little bit more smoother, right? So today I will be sharing three games that I lost, some specific positions, and try to understand what kind of long-term improvements and short-term improvements I need to incorporate in my game. Let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the first position of the day. So you can see my opponent is slightly lower rated than me, almost equal. And my opponent played the Smith Mora Gambit. In the Smith Mora Gambit, white gives away one pawn to get a lot of active play. However, black can simply hold on to that pawn and get a long term advantage in the endgame. So if you see here, I am still that one pawn up, and the position is slightly in favor of white. Now, if you see here, the other thing that I want to draw your attention to is the time. So my opponent has 15 minutes. I am just 6 minutes, and this is, by the way, a 30-minute game, right? So what my opponent did here was a blunder. So my opponent plays knight to g6. So the idea that my opponent has here is pretty simple. The knight here forks the queen and the king, and if I take with my pawn, which I did, the queen can take here on g6, and my opponent thinks the mate which is coming here is unstoppable, right? Because this rook also controls this particular file, so my king can't possibly run away. But however, he overlooked, a simple tactic that I had in this position, which was just to take this bishop off, right? So now the queen can't checkmate on h7. He takes back with the rook. I take back right here. The queen takes back, and if you see here, I have a +5 advantage. My time is around 5 minutes, and I should easily convert this game, right? Uh, However, what I observed very quickly is that I can put some pressure on this particular pawn here, and they make his pieces a little more passive. Win this pawn after that, pressure a checkmate on this particular square, and so on and so forth, right? However, I overlooked the fact that if I move my queen from protecting the f8 square, there is a potential checkmate which my opponent found and delivered. So let's analyze like why I lost this game. So why I lost this game can be attributed to the fact that I was severely low on time, and I could have spent a little more time after this, series of exchanges, and figure out the position and the risk in the position a little bit better. But since I was down on time, I did not take time to do so. I hastily played this queen to g5. So what long-term improvements that I can get out of this is to improve my tactical play, and I have to practice tactics in a time-bound way, right? So maybe I give myself like an hour or so and try to solve like 30 puzzles within that period of time, right? I At this point in time, I think I'm able to think deep, but I'm not able to think deep fast enough. The other thing that I want to improve is my strategic play. I think I lost a lot of time in positions which were not tactical, but I lost the time just because the strategic ideas were not very clear or easy for me to understand. So that's number two. Number three, I did not play the opening as well as I should have. So I think there were some mistakes that I made in the opening itself, which led to White having a little bit of an advantage throughout the game. Um, and I could definitely do some revision on my Smith Mora lines um, to get better in this, to get better in dealing with the Smith Mora gambit. Let's go to the next game. This is another game I play as White. My opponent is around 50 points higher rated than me. So if you see this position, again, something to notice is that I am down time, like around 10 minutes of time I'm down, and the position is more or less equal. Um, if you see, I have a passed pawn on the c file, my opponent has a passed pawn on the e file. So what I should have played here is c5, checking the king. But what I thought that will allow the king to come in, then it will help the king push this pawn, attack my rook, take control of this square. So I can't put my rook behind my pawn, and it will not be that good, right? And because of that, I played something which might look pretty natural. I played my rook behind the pawn, and I thought that now I'm ready to start pushing my pawn, and the rook can't attack my pawn from behind, and it should be pretty okay. Mhm. However, I missed a very simple move from my opponent. So I missed this move, rook to b1, check from my opponent. What it does, it kind of deviates my king, and it can't possibly go to the c file. Keep an eye on this, right? So what happens is once the king moves away from this pawn, my opponent can latch onto this pawn. And that's exactly what my opponent is now trying to do. The rook will come here. Uh, my opponent will just take off this pawn, and if I exchange my rooks here, my king can't stop this pawn from queening, right? So a little complex, but you have to understand my opponent will be able to calculate these complexities since he just has a lot more time than I have. So I tried to build like a counter attack on these backward pawns and try to hold on to the position. But I think it was too little too late, and my opponent is completely winning. Strategic play is emerging like a theme here where I would need to focus going forward. Let's move on to the next position. Okay, I have saved the most heartbreaking loss for the last. So in this position, I'm playing an opponent who is more than 100 rating points above me. And this is completely winning for me. As you can see, it's +7 for me. I am simply 4 pawns up. Here, my opponent plays rook to c2, attacking my knight, and I simply overlook that, and I just push my a pawn. He got my knight just for free, and so this was completely heartbreaking. From +7, I'm still up, but at this point in time, I had no way to know that. So I had some tempo on the rook. He offered me a rook exchange. By the way, this is completely winning for me. And it is just like if I had better understanding of endgames, you know, um, I would have just exchanged the rooks here. And if you see after this position, it's still +4 and just 1 with my passed pawns. There is no way that this knight can hold these 2 pawns on its own. And what that means is the king needs to get involved. And if the king and the knight are both handing these 2 passers, it basically means my other passer from here can simply promote. Let me just start putting a list together. Okay, so what did we figure out from these 3 games, right? the improvements that we need to incorporate are pretty apparent, right? So it's on the long-term perspective, I think it's the middle game strategy and the end game strategy, along with like that the work that I keep doing with my puzzles. I need to be regular with my puzzles as well. But on top of that, I think if I really want to move from 1900 to 2000, I need to start looking at my strategic play. And I want to share something. So this is the book. This is How to Reassess Your Chess by Jeremy Silman. This is a book that I had for quite some time now, but I've never made a lot of effort to go through a bunch of exercises. I have gone through one or two, but not very seriously, you know. So I need to get better at that. And then on the shorter, uh, any like beginners or intermediate players who really want to start improving can also check out some of my chess tips videos that I have made. I've made two or three of them. It's in this particular playlist. Please go and check out. The other improvement, it's a little bit of a short term improvement, I think, which I can incorporate pretty quickly, is the revision of my refutation lines against the Smith-Mora Gambit. And I have made, again, a couple more videos in which I show how I refute the Budapest, the England Gambit, right here. You can find the playlist here. Please check them out. And if you want me to make a similar video on my refutation of the Smith-Mora Gambit, please drop a comment. Um, I hope this is helpful. I really need to start making uh, some improvements on my strategic play. Just go heads down and learn some strategic themes before I get back to playing these games. Hope you liked the video. Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye bye.